against the background of the killing of the Iranian young woman, Mahsa Amini. The Iranian authorities have tightened their censorship on the internet, and have blocked the rest of the Western social networking sites that are still available, such as Instagram or WhatsApp. According to a non-governmental organization, 31 people have been killed since the death of the 22-year-old woman. According to a report by the French newspaper Le Monde, Iran cuts off the mobile phone network and the internet for almost most of the day. Regardless of the Iranian regions, where there are no protests, some other regions have their protesting youth threatened by the Iranian authorities, which confirms that the clashes between residents and security forces are more intense in certain regions. In the wake of the Iranian girl's death, a call by an Iranian activist, on Thursday, September 22, on social media, caused great concern in the country, prompting Tehran to block both phone and internet networks. However, this did not stop the Iranians' anger, and the demonstrations and clashes quickly resumed in the evening, against the backdrop of shooting by the security forces and raids on neighborhoods where protests were held, even in residential buildings. It is noteworthy that last Friday morning, demonstrators in Tehran and other Iranian cities set fire to police stations and vehicles, in anger over the killing of the Iranian young woman, Mahsa Amini, who was arrested by the Commission for the Promotion of Virtue and the Prevention of Vice and died while in detention, because of the way she wore the hijab, which did not fit. For the authority, it does not seem that this can pass peacefully, because a week after her death, the authorities tightened their censorship on the internet, and blocked social media sites, which would inflame Iranians' anger, increase their protest and rally against the regime. According to NetBlock, a web monitoring company, the country is now under the most severe restrictions since the bloody crackdown on protests in November 2019, which left hundreds dead. As noted by NetBlock, new bans are being implemented, particularly targeting Instagram and WhatsApp platforms, which are now severely disrupted in the country. These significant disruptions also affected the networks of major mobile operators, and local outages in internet access were observed, particularly in Sanandaj, the capital of Iran's Kurdistan region, and in Tehran during the demonstrations. Before the protests began, Iran was already one of the countries that restricted internet access the most. Facebook, Twitter and YouTube have not been accessible for several years, although some regime officials, including Ayatollah Khamenei, have accounts on Twitter, not to mention that messages from Telegram, the main social network used in the country, are also blocked until this week. It is Instagram. According to what was translated by Watan, after several years of blocking communication sites, Iranians used to resort to tools to circumvent censorship, such as virtual private networks, which allow them to access applications and sites blocked by service providers on the internet, and several accounts were broadcast on the internet. Instagram photos of demonstrations and police violence captured by witnesses in recent days. As the protests continued for 5 days, the names and faces of the victims of the repression began to appear on social media. Iranian Mina Majidi, 63, was buried Thursday morning in Kermanshah, where he was killed in a demonstration on Wednesday. According to the Oslo-based Iranian human rights NGO, at least 31 protesters were killed in the recent protests. On the other hand, the Iranian authorities announced the killing of 17 victims, including protesters and policemen. At least 6 activists were arrested in Sanandaj. In Tehran, Iranian journalist Niloufar Hamidi, who revealed the death of Mahsa Amini, was arrested from her home on Thursday morning. A journalist working for the Iranian newspaper Al-Sharq, who was behind the disclosure of several cases of human rights violations by the morality police. Many students arrested another Iranian journalist, who played an important role in the coverage of Mahsa Amini's case. Eli Mohammadi received a visit from intelligence agents at her home on Thursday. In the afternoon, his apartment was searched and his mobile phone, computer and identity documents were confiscated. A multi-award-winning journalist, Ilahi Mohammadi, traveled to Mahsa Amini's hometown of Saghs in Kurdistan, where she interviewed the young woman's father. According to the lawyer of many political prisoners, Muhammad Ali Kamfayouzi, a new wave of repression is falling on the country's universities, as academic institutions have been at the forefront of the challenge and protests in recent days. Several students have been arrested or summoned, Muhammad Ali Kamfayouzi wrote on Twitter. On the other hand, it is difficult at the moment to know the fate of the people who have been arrested, but some have already been released, as explained by an Iranian woman of Kurdish origin living in Tehran, contacted via WhatsApp, during one of the very rare times the network is available, where it explained, "Among my acquaintances, 4 were arrested in the demonstrations. They are from Sanandajan Marivn, in Kurdistan. In addition, my cousin was arrested in Buchan, in West Azerbaijan." She pointed out, they were all released after a day or two, due to the lack of places in detention centers. But they have all been summoned and questioned ever since. Not to mention that my cousin's body and face are covered in bruises, but she categorically refuses to talk about what happened to her. Some celebrities are angry Mahsa Amini's death, and the wave of protest that followed, caused such an uproar that some celebrities who would normally be silent, and even satisfied with the regime, expressed their indignation. Posted by Ali Karimi Najma's footballer and former captain of the national team, a constant critic of the violence perpetrated by the regime, posted pictures of the victims of repression on his Instagram page, including Mahsa Amini. Moreover, some successful startups, such as Tetsi and Snap, the Iranian equivalent of the Uber app, have posted messages of condolence after the young woman's death. The state's response was not delayed, as these companies were forced to quickly withdraw what they wrote after receiving threatening calls from the judicial authorities. As a warning of increased repression, the Revolutionary Guards, the military ideological wing of the Islamic Republic, toughened its tone and said in a statement issued on Thursday, "We have asked the judicial authorities to identify those who spread false news and rumors on social media, which endanger Iranian streets and undermine public peace and the safety of society, that deal with them decisively." By issuing this warning, the elite apparatus of Iran's security apparatus is sending a message that it is ready to crack down hard on protests to protect the regime. The hardline Daily Kayhan, whose editor-in-chief was appointed by Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, urged security forces to show no mercy and leave criminals unpunished.